Hello, everyone. So, welcome to my public lecture. All right, and I'm Hope Toy. And as you can see, my brief description in my channel. All right, so no required to introduce one more time. Okay, so the lecture topic that I picked for you today is the neuroscience of attention in a distracted world. Right, let me write it down for you here. All right. So what is the neuroscience of attention in a distracted world? So later in the video that you'll be able to find out what I'm going to brief through and also lecture through. So let me begin with a quiet experiment. For the next 5 seconds, focus only on your breathing. Can you do that? Now, ask yourself, how many thoughts interrupted you? Like a notification from Facebook, a memory, a worry, a place for somewhere, or a plan for tomorrow. So we live in the most distracted era in human history. Yet the crisis is not merely technological, it is neurological. So attention is not just a skill, it is a biological process shaped by evolution, chemistry, and competition. And in today's world, your attention is the most valuable resource you own and the most aggressively targeted. So tonight in this video, I want to explore what attention actually is and how the brain controls it, why modern environments fracture it, and what we can do individually and collectively to reclaim it. So in part number 1, what is attention? So when I say this word attention, what is the one word that you might just grasp it right now? In neuroscience, attention is not a single thing. It is a system. At least 3 major networks coordinate what you notice and what you ignored. So the first one is, I'm going to write it down here. The alerting network, which keeps you ready. And the second one is the orienting network, directs you towards stimuli. And the third one is the executive control network, suppresses distractions. So these are the 3 major networks which coordinate what you notice and what you ignore. So these were mapped extensively by neuroscientist Michael Ponsner. I'm going to put it here, his name. You can search a further research if you'd love to do more research. Michael Ponsner. So he is the neuroscientist who showed that attention is a distributed process, not a single spotlight. And your brain and my brain is constantly filtering 11 million bits of sensory information per second. So conscious awareness handles perhaps 40 to 50 bits. Attention is the gatekeeper. So without it, there is no learning, no memory, no decision-making, no self-regulation. Attention is the currency of consciousness. Now, let's move on to the next part number 2, which is the neural architecture of focus. Part 2, the neural architecture of focus. So in this area, I just want to pinpoint three prefactors here. Right. So the let's look under the hood. So there are three key brain systems shape attention, right? Maybe you've come across. The first one is prefrontal cortex. Right? And what does the prefrontal cortex do? Which is located just behind your forehead. This region governs executive control, planning, inhibition, sustained focus. So that is the prefrontal cortex. The second one is the parietal cortex. So what does the parietal cortex do? Where is it? Which helps orient attention spatially, where to look, what to prioritize. And the last one, but not the least, it's the anterior cingulate cortex. So what does this, the anterior cingulate cortex, do? Monitors conflict. So when you are in a fight, which detects and weighed out the pros and cons of your argument and what are the chances of likely to win over the other person, such etc. So detecting when distractions complete with goals. So together, these regions form what neuroscientists call the frontoparietal control framework, which is called the frontoparietal control framework. So these three things complete the system. Right? But there is another powerful system involved, which is the dopamine reward system. Well, we all know what is dopamine, right? Dopamine reward system. I'm gonna put it down here. A dopamine reward system. And dopamine does not merely signal pleasure, it signals salience. Yeah, I'm going to write it down, this word, salience. So what is salience to you? Salience, what is worth paying attention to? So which one is worth paying attention to? Which one to focus and which one to avoid? And here lies the modern dilemma. Now, let's move on to part 3. Evolution builds a destructible brain. Part 3. It's evolution builds a destructible brain. All right. So our ancestors lived in environments of scarcity and danger, novel stimuli. That's called novel stimuli. Movement in the bushes, sudden sounds, and could signal threat or opportunity. So the brain evolved to prioritize novelty. And the neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz, I'm going to write it down, his name, so that you could put it here. So he is the neuroscientist. He demonstrated that dopamine neurons fire in response to unexpected rewards. So unpredictability is neurologically powerful. Now consider your smartphone. Every scroll, every notification, every refresh is unpredictable, right? You don't know what to expect. It mimics the evolutionary structure of reward learning. Your brain cannot easily distinguish between ancestral survival signals and modern digital clues. The results? Chronic attentional fragmentation, right? That's called chronic attentional fragmentation. So what is chronic attentional fragmentation? Chronic fragmentation is the persistent disruptions of focus caused by digital overwhelming multitasking and constant notifications. Unlike ADHD, this condition often stems from environmental overstimulation, resulting in impaired deep work, reduced productivity, and mental fatigue. So it's like it manifests as rapid task switching, making it difficult to sustain retention in in one in one area or in one focus. Right. Now let's move on to part 4, which is the default mode network and the wandering mind. Okay, can I erase it already? Or maybe I just want you to look at it also to have, okay. The next one is, which is the network, the default mode network and the wandering mind. So attention is not only focusing outward, it also involves managing the wandering mind. When you are not focused on a task, a network called the default mode network, DMN, becomes active. So this network supports self-reflection, future stimulation, memory integration. So neuroscientist Marcus Reckel, yeah, he identified this network as central to spontaneous thought. Mind wandering is not inherently bad. In fact, he surprisingly stated that creativity and long-term planning depend on it. The problem is not distraction itself. The problem is involuntary switching. So in a in a distracted world, we rarely enter deep focused, but we also rarely enter deep reflection. So we hover in cognitive shallowness. Now let's move on to the pause, to the next one, part number 5. The cause of attention switching. So what happens when you do frequent switching? Many people believe that multitasking increases productivity. Neuroscience says otherwise. Research shows that research shows that task switching incurs a cognitive cost. Each switch forces the prefrontal cortex to reconfigure goals. So this consumes glucose and neural resources. Over time, chronic switching leads to reduced working memory capacity, increased stress hormones, impaired long-term memory consolidation. So the brain cannot deeply encode information if attention is fragmented. Deep work requires sustained neural synchrony, got to be synchronized with everything in order to have a deep work concentration, and distraction disrupts it. Now, let's talk about part number 6. The stress attention feedback loop. There is another layer. Attention and stress are bi-directional. Chronic digital interruption elevates cortisol. Elevated cortisol impairs prefrontal function. Okay, before I continue with, you would think that, oh, what is cortisol, right? Okay. So cortisol, which is known as the primary stress hormone in chemistry formula, which is C21H30O5, it's I would say glucocorticoid. Yeah, glucocorticoid produced by the adrenal cortex that regulates metabolism, immune response, blood pressure, and sleep-wake cycles. So it acts as a survival mechanism, peaking in the morning to trigger wakefulness in response to stress. So that is called cortisol. So elevated cortisol impairs prefrontal function. Impaired prefrontal function reduces attentional control, which increases susceptibility to distraction. This creates a feedback loop. The distracted brain becomes more destructible in classrooms, in offices, in governance. The societal consequences are profound. Now, let's move on to the next part, attention as a moral and economic issue. Part number 7. Attention is no longer merely a psychological phenomenon. It is an economic commodity, and technology platforms compete in what some scholars called attention economy. Yeah. Their design is optimized for engagement duration, not cognitive flourishing. So at institutions like Stanford University, researchers in persuasive technology have studied how interface design shapes behavior at scale. So this is no conspiracy, it is incentive structure. If revenue depends on time spent, systems will maximize interruption. The question becomes, can individual willpower compete with billion-dollar behavioral engineering? This is something to consider. Now, let's move on to the next part, which is in part 8, neuroplasticity, the brain retrained. Our brain has the capacity to get trained, sorry. So here is the hopeful part. The brain is plastic, neural circuits strengthen with use, chronic distraction trains rapid attentional shifts, deep reading trains sustained focused, mediation strengthens executive attention networks. So there are many studies show that mindfulness practice increases gray matter density in regions associated with cognitive control. Attention is not fixed, it is trained. So the question is, what are we rehearsing daily? Now, even in this category, right, we could also use in number part number 9, education in the age of fragmentation. For educators, and I'm sure many of you that you're watching me from every part of the world, from every corner of the world, all the educators out there, even for leaders in education, this challenge is existential. Learning requires sustained focused cognitive struggle, delayed gratification. Right? So these 3 things, we require these 3 things when we learn something. Sustained focus, cognitive struggles, and delayed gratification. So we all know what is sustained focus. It's a deep focus in something you do or something you work with or something you're working on or something you're studying for. And it's another thing is cognitive struggles. I'm going to give you a definition for cognitive struggle. Cognitive struggle, or in a way, is also called impairment, involves difficulties with thinking, memory, concentration, and language, often described as brain fog. And another thing is delayed gratification. So what is delayed gratification? Delayed gratification is it's a behavioral matter, behavioral self-regulatory ability to resist smaller immediate rewards in favor of larger, more valuable and enduring rewards in the future. So I would say if a person has delayed gratification, it means a person has a gigantic amount of patience to wait for the bigger reward later instead of achieving a small reward that doesn't do much for his or her. So that is the delayed gratification, and which is the opposite of instant gratification. It is the capacity to wait for a better reward, often involving impulse control, patience, and willpower. All right, so these are the 3 things that learning person requires. So if students grow up in constant interruption, their neural architecture adapts accordingly. The solution is not merely burning devices, it is cultivating attention literacy. Attention literacy includes teaching students how attention works, designing environments that protect focused, and modeling deep engagement. And attention is foundational to academic excellence. Without it, rigor collapses. So, as in conclusion, as in reclaiming attention, so what can we do as an individual? Practice monotasking, create notification-free zones, being away for yourself from phone for a while, schedule deep work sections, engage in contemplative practices. So here, in the sense I was saying, contemplative practices means these are diverse intentional activities designed to quiet the mind, foster deep concentration, and promote inner well-being, insight, and self-awareness. So these are the contemplative practices. So this is, in a way, to be put in a simple term, it's mental or physical exercise often performed in silence or with focused attention, aimed at cultivating awareness. And what about in institutionalized design tag that respects cognitive limits, reform incentive structures, protect focused in educational and professional spaces. As in culturally, we must redefine productivity not as responsiveness, but as depth. So, as in conclusion, attention shapes perception, perception shapes thought, thought shapes action, action shapes society. If we lose control of our attention, we lose control of our trajectory. But if we understand the neuroscience, if we align technology, education, and culture with the biology of focus, we can design a world that enhances cognition rather than fragments it. So the distracted world is not inevitable. Yeah. So we can avoid it. The distracted world is not inevitable, it is engineered, and what is engineered can be redesigned. The ultimate question for you is not whether we can pay attention, it is whether we value it enough to protect it. Thank you. So, this is the end of my public lecture for this video, and I hope you learned something out of it. And I'll be coming up with more topics and more intriguing lectures. So tune in for more, and remember to subscribe it. If this video says something to you, remember to subscribe it, share it with your friends and families, and keep on learning. Never stop learning. And have a lovely and blessed day ahead to all of you. Goodbye.